It has been a while since the image generation section of this course has been updated, and a lot has happened since the course was released in 2023. And up to now, a recent innovation that has appeared is the autoregressive image generation within ChatGPT, using their 4.0 model. So I have a screen of the ChatGPT in front of me, and I'm going to show you a few prompts as well as explain the autoregressive image generation within ChatGPT. So this is a little bit different than Stable Diffusion and the other AI image generation. It uses a technique that builds upon the context that it previously has and iterates left to right, top to down, which is different than diffusion models. There is another lesson in this course that explains it more in depth in a slideshow. This is more just a hands-on example. So I'm going to go ahead and generate something. So image of a generate an image of a painting of a let's think of a scene. While we use AI to come up with a scene, explain right, a prompt for a painting that I can use that depicts the cliffs of Dover in Scotland at night. So use AI at AI, and I'm going to go ahead and take this prompt and add a little twist. Generate an image of with a Vincent Van Gogh style. So something interesting that has come up with GPT 4.0 in their image generation is that it is very good at generating things at previous style. And this is something that is unique because of the way that the autoregressive technique works. It can generate things that are more stylistic or more different than the previous training data. And this is an advantage of this kind of image generation model. So in this process right now, it is printing it out token by token, left to right, top to down, and it is filling in items based on the previous context. It is really strong at keeping things extremely consistent, as well as making sure there aren't like any weird things. Like in previous Stable Diffusion models, sometimes weird things would get generated as artifacts. However, now in this, it's actually extremely consistent, and you can see this feels like something that is actually painted or actually created by a human. And something really amazing about this model is, and this technique is that you can continue to prompt it by adding things onto the image. So for example, I could say, add a house on the hill, with a light on in the window. So something really amazing about this is that it can take the previous image that is already generated, use that as the context, and build upon it. So if we give it a few minutes to generate the image, it should build upon the previous image and create something that's almost consistent with it. And this has been previously a huge issue with diffusion models. After the first image is generated, it is almost impossible to generate the image exactly the same. And I think there was a lot of research in attempting to do that. However, I don't think anybody was able to do it perfectly. So a lot of times the image generation was a one-shot thing, whereas this can be a multi-shot thing, and you can do inline image editing. So let's give it a few seconds, and you can see it's already like doing pretty well. This looks pretty consistent with the previous image. So let's see if it adds the house on the hill with a light in the window. It looks like it's printing it out correctly. So here it's taking the previous image as the context for this prompt. And that is how it's able to do this so well, and so consistently. So this is, some new innovation that came out of OpenAI in the last month. at the time of recording in April 2025, as circulate the internet and got battle tested. So you can see these two are almost completely consistent, which is pretty amazing. So I'm gonna show you one other interesting thing that happened with this model that is different than other diffusion models, because if you remember, diffusion, isn't good at generating text, but, this is actually extremely good at generating text and infographics. So, I'm gonna think of a topic that's kind of hard to explain. I am interested in the number of trees in the Amazon. So, write me a prompt about generating a infographic about the trees in the Amazon. So use AI to get AI, and then I'm gonna go ahead and take this and generate an image for me that is an infographic. I'm gonna go ahead and paste it. Go ahead and send that, and then now you can see that the text is going to be extremely good, or should be good. And the keywords for this triggering the image generation is generate an image tends to trigger the image generation and makes a model make something. So let's go ahead and let this run. This seems to be available in the free version as well as the paid version. The paid version, the $20 a month one, can generate it correctly. And I think the free one should be able to do it too with lower limits. So, you can see here that the text is perfect. It is so consistent. It looks great. It looks like something that's professional. And that was always an issue with previous stable diffusion models. So you can see here, this looks like something so far that is publishable, or usable in a actual environment. Another thing that you can do is upload an image and get it to edit the image. So I'm gonna go ahead and save some water so it doesn't need to finish generating all of this. You could actually upload an image and get it to edit an image. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the previous image and download it, and then upload it again into a new prompt, so it doesn't have this kind of context. So let's go ahead and upload this, and I'm gonna go ahead and ask it to make it daytime, generate a new image like this, but make it daytime instead of night. So you can take a previous image and edit it as well in this interface, and it also, because of the autoregressive technique, it will take this image and sequence it into the context, and then try to create an image that is consistent with it. So if this works out correctly, it should generate the house on the cliff during the day instead of during the night. So let's give it a second to see if it does it correctly. So another one con about the autoregressive technique versus this diffusion model is that it is much slower. You can see that it took a while to even start the generation, and the generation is much slower than the diffusion model. The diffusion takes about 30 seconds. However, the autoregressive technique can take all the way up to a minute. Of course, at the time of recording, this will probably get faster in the future. So yeah. And ChatGPT is not the only model that uses autoregressive. Google Gemini Flash 2.0 with image generation also uses it. So, you can pick your poison there. I think GPT 4.0 right now, because they typically do not throttle the model, generates better images because they are allocating more GPU resources to each one. Whereas Gemini might be a little bit more throttled, so the image output quality might be a little bit worse, but Gemini has different pros of faster rendering and higher rate limits. So you have to pick your poison there. OpenAI is definitely spending more money to acquire users right now at the time of recording. So their output is a little bit better. So, yeah, you can see here the style is consistent. The hill is consistent. It looks very consistent with the previous images. So, yeah, this, concludes the hands-on, demo, and, let's move on to the next section. So now on the second part of our image generation lesson, we're going to run through an example of using Midjourney. So you can find Midjourney by either typing in Google Midjourney, and it should be one of the top links. That will take you to a site that looks like this. Or you can go directly by typing in midjourney.com, and it'll take you to the same site. So currently Midjourney is in beta, and it is free for about 30 images. After that, there's a monthly fee of about $30 at the time of recording. And to join, you have to first go to join beta and have Discord installed on your computer. Discord is a free installation, and it's a chat app that's used to chat and video chat, voice chat, or text chat with friends. So first you go to join beta, and you'll get, it'll attempt to launch Discord, and you can join the Midjourney chat room on Discord. So I'm already in Midjourney, and you can see here there are a ton of rooms to join. And first you need to go to the Getting Started, and the Getting Started will give you all of the instructions for how to use Midjourney. So the format to use it is /imagine, and then you can type whatever prompt you want to generate. The bot will send 4 images in about 60 seconds, and you can either upscale or variate one of the images. So there are a couple chat rooms that are prefaced with newbie, and these are the rooms for newcomers. So you can choose any room. We're going to join newbie 112 for now. And you can see here that this is a publicly shared room. In the free version, there is no privacy. You can only share in the newbie chat, which is combined with other people. So we're going to try the same prompt with the /imagine. And we are going to create a canyon, Grand Canyon at night with clouds and moon, with moon and stars and clouds in overhead, with a church in the background. So once you type it in, the Midjourney bot will tag you and start generating. It'll give you the status as it changes. And the free version doesn't come with priority. If you pay for the pro version, you'll have a private room and be able to generate images that will only be visible to you at a higher priority. But image generation is pretty fast. It only takes about 60 seconds to create one. And then once it's created, there are 4 buttons on the bottom. The U means upscale, the V means variation, and then the recycle is reload. This will create new images based on the prompt again if you don't like any of the variations. So now our image is done, and you can see this art is a little bit more detailed. It looks like the 21st century version of Starry Night, as if it was generated in a video game. So if we like any of these, we can hit either variation or upscale or both. So let's hit upscale and variation, and we can see it generating 2 more versions of it. So here you can see the variations of it. This looks a little bit more weird, and you can see it's very much a random thing. It looks like it was just rendering. So you can see here that this is a more high quality version of it. It streams to upload, and this looks very kind of similar to what we're going for, as if it was in a 21st century version. Now, if we want to reimagine this more in the 1700s version. Let's try imagine 1700s water paint style. So now we start a new imagine job, and we can wait for it to start. And once it starts, then we can play around and generate more image variations. You can see how this becomes really fun, really fast, and you can sort of get lost and spend hours generating virtual artwork using AI. So here, this is our final image. And you can see it looks very cinematic, very realistic of what you're trying to create. There is also a Midjourney leaderboard that you can use to gather inspiration. This is in the gallery, and this is uploaded. This is uploaded by other people that lets you sort of get inspiration on what you could create. So let's see, there we go. You have to log in order to come here, and then you can also see all of your old generated images. This is sort of me playing around. And once you go to the community showcase, you can see the best images that are generated. A lot of these have the prompt as well underneath, so you can learn how they generate these images and how to improve your image prompts. So that's it for the Midjourney section. Next, we're going to cover Stable Diffusion before going over to the transformer models. Let's go over how to create generative images using Gemini in the newly updated Gemini app released by Google. So this is an attempt to keep the course updated, and a lot of the AI tools that have been proposed in the first version of the course has since added a paywall, which makes them not free anymore. And these include Midjourney, DALL-E 2, DALL-E 3, and a few other of the AI generation models. To make sure this course has options for all students that are free to use and doesn't require a payment, I'm going to go over how to use AI image generation in Gemini and how to generate images using that. So to start, go to gemini.google.com /app, and you should land on a page like this. If you do not have a Gemini account, it's the same as your Google account. And I'm currently on Gemini Advanced, which is the paid version, but this also works on Gemini Regular. So this only works in the US and other select countries. So sometimes if you are in an unallowed country, then you might not have image generation enabled. So let's go ahead and generate image. So we are going to use a prompt, and an important keyword to include in this prompt to get it to generate images is, can you make me a picture of? And let's go ahead and just make a picture of a bird. So now, similar to other AI generation tools, it is interfacing you with a prompt, and by sending a prompt, it will return a response. And we get 3 responses, sometimes 4 by default. If you are interested in making more images, you can click generate more, and I'll attempt to make a couple more images. So this is sort of the base tool and how to interface with it. So the other rules of prompt engineering also apply. You can add more keywords to make it more descriptive or similar to how you imagine it. So let's go ahead and add some more details. Let's try, can you make me a picture of a bird soaring in the air? And I'm going to add a few keywords like DSLR to indicate the style, realistic, and high contrast. 4K. And this will just dictate the quality and the desired output of this image. So let's go ahead and send that prompt and see what it returns. So you can see here that this image generation is very different than this because this is more of a general prompt. And when I say bird, it can be interpreted in many different ways. Like we can have different kinds of birds, we can have hummingbirds, we can have cartoon birds. And now I'm sort of dictating that I want this to be a certain type, and I want it to be a DSLR photo, a hyper-realistic one, and I want it to be in the air and high contrast. So we can change this to something else. Like maybe we want this to be a cartoon bird, so I'm going to reuse the prompt here, and I'm going to go copy it and down here, and I'm going to change realistic to cartoon and remove DSLR, and maybe I want it in a Pixar Disney style. So let's go ahead and type that in. Gemini does have more refusals than other AI tools, most likely because of fears of like copyright. Luckily, this doesn't run into that. So we can create a Pixar or Disney style bird. It actually created to black and white and to color, but you can see that animation style is very different because we changed a few of the keywords. So you can go ahead and take this and download it. The download button's on the right side, and it generates a downloaded image. So this concludes our section of the course, and we went over how to generate images using Gemini as a free option for students in this course. Now I'm going to walk through the recently released Google Media Studio. This was released a few days ago during Google Cloud Next in 2025. And Google Media Studio is a one-stop shop for creating a rich media advertising or informational, any sort of rich media such as images, audio, music, and video is supported inside of the studio. So let's go ahead and open this up. This is within Google Cloud and Vertex AI Studio. You can find it by Googling Vertex AI Studio, and then it should lead you to this page. You'll need a Google Cloud account and have billing set up. So I'm going to click through each slide to show you the things that can be created here. So Media Studio uses VO, which is the video generation model. You can see here, VO2. As well as Imagine 3, which is Google's image generation. There's also audio using their Chirp text to audio model, and Lyra, which is their sound generation model. So let's go ahead and go through each one. Image generation is similar to the image generation we've already seen, so we don't really need to go through this. The more interesting new features are the audio and the music generation. So audio is a text-to-speech model that takes something you have said and or have typed and turned it into speech. So let's go ahead and generate a text that we can use to generate into speech. So I'm going to ask Gemini on this other tab to I'm going to switch to the Flash model to create a short paragraph telling a story about a bird. Keep it under 50 words. I'm going to do this to keep it short, and I'm going to use this audio to move it into Vertex AI Studio and generate some English words. And you can also use other languages. It's pretty customizable. There's Chinese, there's German, there's Danish, there's Spanish, Hindu, Hindi, Dutch, Vietnamese. There's a bunch of different languages. I'm going to just use English for now, and I'm going to use this to generate some text. So it looks like we need to enable this project inside of our cloud using our cloud API. So we just have to hit enable in the link that they provide us, and this enables billing for us. So you can see here the pricing is $60 per million tokens. Which is actually pretty reasonable. So let's go ahead and try this again now. Now that it has been generated, you can see it's extremely fast, and we play it back. So this sounds pretty good. There's some customization here. You can change the speed, the volume, as well as the audio rate. Let's go ahead and try a different language and try Spanish instead. Sounds good. So this is an example of the text speech. You can imagine all the things you can create with this, such as podcasts, voiceovers, and audiobooks. And this is a lot faster than doing something with a human and talking through it. It's great for easily pumping out a lot of content or creating social media content really quickly. Now let's go to the song generation. This will let you create music and other sound bites that can be used within commercials. So I'm going to go ahead and create a sound, create a short 30 second instrumental using a harp, kick drums, and a major scale. So this will create short sound bites that can be used within your advertisement or social media posts. So let's go ahead and generate something. It looks like we still need access to the Midjourney API. So let's go ahead into the API, services and, go ahead and try to enable this. So, everything requires, enabling within the API. This controls the billing to make sure you're not, being billed for something that you aren't, using, or somebody stole your API key to use. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find this. It might not be publicly available or still rolling out. So, maybe we can't use this yet. Let's go ahead to the video gen and just try to use this, one. So, if it's not usable in this video, it might be usable in the future. I'm going to go ahead and try their sample prompt in VO to see if we can do this. So it looks like VO is publicly available right now. The other one might be disabled for this video, because I swear I turned on the API a while ago. So VO is a video generation model that, creates 8-second videos in, different aspect ratios, and it is similar to image gen that it can be used to create, content, and it could be used for creating like short social media videos, short stock photos or videos. And the interesting part is this is the only publicly available, API for creating video from a hyperscaler. Currently, OpenAI at this time does not have their video generation model available, as well as other hyperscalers like Amazon and Microsoft. So, you can see here this prompt of pancakes with maple syrup. A cinematic B-roll is generated, and we have 4 samples. These all look extremely good, and high quality. So this is something that Google really excels in, this video generation. And they allow up to 8 seconds of video, and you can decrease the number of results to make generation faster. And then once you're done, you can download these videos and use them in your project. The interesting part is that you can actually, use this altogether suite to create everything, that you might need for your advertisement without leaving. So it's a one-stop shop for all of this, which makes it really powerful for content generation. Some interesting keywords that might be worth, including inside your video prompt: B-roll, which is a media word for, content that isn't meant to be the main story. It's like a background in the background. There's also dynamic, which makes it specifies the camera angling. Cinematic, which is also specifying the camera angling. So, if you want to integrate this in your application, there's also code links that can be used as, for API purposes or application purposes. And there's code for image generation as well. Currently sound generation doesn't have that feature. However, since it's an API, there is a way of integrating it. So, this covers the, Vertex AI Media Studio. Just a quick walkthrough to see, the features. This is still extremely new. So it is changing by the day. things that might be available now won't be available in the future, and things that weren't available in the future weren't available now might be available in the future. So, this concludes the section. Let's move on to the next one. It's been some time since, I have updated this course. However, recent events in AI has led to a new innovation that I think should be covered and included in this course, which is the recent GPT-4o image generation update, which introduces autoregressive models compared to the typical diffusion models that exist in the marketplace up to the last beginning of this year, 2025. So, let's go ahead and get into it and learn more about this autoregressive technique. So what are autoregressive models? This is more similar to the current way that, chatbots generate text like paragraphs and, stories. It's different than other image generation models so far because it is building upon previous tokens that have already been generated. This makes it much more similar to the paragraph generation and text generation. And the pros are that it creates consistent images over a sequence and it maintains a context. However, it is much slower and much more expensive. Another interesting thing that happens is text is generated correctly, which has been a main problem with diffusion-based models because diffusion-based models generate everything all at once. It creates random noise and it tries to just turn that noise into something that's seen before. And a lot of times text gets messed up in that process just because, when everything gets unblurred at the same time, there might be conflicts at different parts of the image and then a incorrect text gets outputted. However, autoregressive models generate the image left to right, top down, similar to regular writing and painting and drawing, which ends up having more consistent text and also lets you use a context, which lets you maintain consistent images over time. So how to think about it? Autoregressive image generation is a lot more similar to painting, while diffusion is like throwing random darts at a board and that tries to make it similar to something you've seen before. So diffusion is like all at once, autoregressive is more procedural. And autoregressive in that case ends up being a little bit more creative because it can create things that it's never seen before. It has maybe seen similar styles and can create something based on that style that's similar. However, diffusion is kind of like reproducing its training data, so it's much harder to create something that's truly unique, whereas autoregressive can create something that is new. So some research papers in the past, some engineers and researchers at ByteDance, which is TikTok, has shown that there are improvements in image generation in autoregressive models versus old diffusion models. The statement of the paper is that they say that autoregressive models beat diffusion. However, there is caveats, which is much slower execution time. So some examples of it in action, you can see on the left is autoregressive. It starts unblurring the image, and draws left to right, tops down, which is very similar to, painting, whereas the diffusion model creates random noise at first and tries to turn it into something that you have seen before. And the diffusion model uses the GAN architecture. So, during training, it, has two models working with each other, one that throws random noise and one that tries to verify whether that random noise is something that I've seen before. And it keeps doing that until it can generate something that passes a smell test by the model that verifies it. However, autoregressive is trained with a different technique. So what does this mean to you? Generally, autoregressive models will be better for text generation and image generation within context. More often than not, they will probably be better at doing image generation. So I would encourage using it when they are available. They are more compute intensive, and I anticipate the cost of autoregressive models to go up in the future. And currently at the time of recording in early 2025, autoregressive models are less common than diffusion-based models. For example, the two currently on the market are GPT-4o image generation, which is autoregressive, as well as Gemini 2.0 Flash with image generation is also autoregressive. And if you have seen the Studio Ghibli pictures, that is the autoregressive made with the GPT-4o image generation. One interesting take is that the skills of prompting are useful with both image generation as well with autoregressive as well as diffusion. That doesn't change. It is only the speed of execution, the quality and consistency of the images, as well as the costs of generation changes between the different models. So that covers autoregressive versus diffusion. Let's move on to the next section. Is Photoshop's generative AI fill. And this is something that does cost money, unlike the other tools that we talked about in this class. And Photoshop's generative AI fill is mostly used for modifying existing photos. It's not meant for creating new ones from scratch. Nonetheless, it's a very cool feature, and it does require a Creative Cloud subscription and a subscription to Photoshop. So if you have that, let's go ahead and get started and walk through it. So you can find the installation by Googling Photoshop Generative AI Fill Beta. So let's go ahead and Google that, and it should be the first link. And it will take you to a page like this, which is community.adobe/T5/Photoshop-beta. And you want to hit install here, which will open your Creative Cloud that's on your desktop. So let's go ahead and open it, and I already have it installed. Go ahead and install it if you don't have it already, and let's go ahead and open. So when you're greeted to Photoshop, you're greeted to a very conventional, normal Photoshop page, and this is your canvas. So let's go ahead and load up a picture. I already have one loaded just to show how generative AI fill works. And this is a picture of a castle on a hill surrounded by trees. So Photoshop generative AI fill works by modifying a selection that you can pick. So if you have used Photoshop before, then you already know how to do a selection. However, if you don't already know Photoshop, just go ahead and click on the lasso tool on the left, which is the tool that lets you select part of the image. So what we're going to do here is we're going to modify the area surrounding the castle in this picture. So let's say we took this and we're a photographer and we took a beautiful shot, but we want it to be more scenic. So let's go ahead, and the intention is to make it look like it's on a lake. So let's go ahead and grab around this castle. And we want to leave a little room and go around the castle like this and just grab the elements that we want to modify. So let's leave a mountain on the side, grab the entire area around, and you just grab it like you're dragging the areas that you want to select. And once you select it, you can see this dashed line now appears, indicating that this is your selection. And now there's a new button called Generative Fill that I just clicked on, and you describe what you want to have in the picture. So let's go ahead and describe this as beautiful lake in the countryside. And once we have our prompt, we just hit generate, and now the AI is working. Photoshop is generating an image to replace based on the input that you gave it, which is a selection that you picked in the previous step. So now with this selection, it generates an image and it provides you with the lake. However, this isn't exactly what we want. So let's try this one more time. And I think that a keyword that we added that actually modified the output is countryside. So let's just leave it as beautiful lake, but grab a larger selection to give the AI more room to work with. So this process requires a little finagling because it is an image. So what you input is the constraints of the AI. If you give it too little to work with, it might not generate enough imagery to replace it that makes sense. So you want to grab actually more than you want to replace. And if it doesn't make sense, the AI will probabilistically not replace it, and it will try to give you an ideal picture based on your prompt. So this time, let's just drop in the countryside and only do beautiful lake. And click generate. So now the AI is working again, and let's see what comes out. Like other AI tools, every time you run it, it provides a different output. So you might need to run it a few times in order to get the output that you want. So this is a lot more close to what we want. And let's go ahead and try to replace this again, because this isn't exactly the output that we were expecting. So let's go ahead and grab a selection. And then let's do a lake in the countryside. So let's go ahead and replace this. And once again, this takes a few minutes and it sends an image to the AI that's running either on the computer or in Adobe servers. And then it's taking the image selection that you take and probabilistically using the GAN infrastructure, building an image to replace it on your photo. And then it's blending it together. So this is getting a little closer to what we want. It's starting to look really unique and something that we actually didn't expect in the first picture. So another thing that we can do with this is actually replace the sky. So maybe we want more of a sunset instead of this cloudy sky. So let's grab another selection and grab around the castle. So let's do this. And this process requires a little bit of time because you're manually doing a selection. So you want to get it as precise as possible. However, this already saves a huge amount of time. Any person who has ever worked with Photoshop will likely tell you that this is a massive step forward. And let's go ahead and call this sunset without clouds. Or another way of writing this is clear sunset. So let the AI take the prompt and take the image selection and generate a new composite that it will stitch together to add to the photo. So now it's starting to look a little bit more like sunset, and this picture is looking a lot more photo-esque. So maybe we want to try another selection, or we want to replace something else. So let's replace this mountain. And maybe we want to add something like houses on the mountain side. And let's go ahead and generate. So you can have a lot of fun with this. There's a lot of variation that you can do, and it completely changes one image to a new image. And this transformation process is done in a way that makes it a lot easier compared to how it historically would have had to do it with normal Photoshop. So this is Adobe's Photoshop's generative AI feature. And I'm going to revert this because I actually don't like that edit that much. So this is just sort of a reminder that it does sometimes turn out photos that might not be perfect, and it requires a little bit of manual touching or manual redoing in order to get the picture that you want. However, this is the generative AI feature in Photoshop. I think it's a really cool Gen AI tool, and it's a great way to edit photos using the power of AI. In this video, let's cover Adobe Firefly. And Adobe Firefly is a open beta of a new product that Adobe's offering in their Creative Suite. As of now, since it's an open beta, it's completely free to use. However, this might change in the future and it might require a Creative Suite subscription. So to get to this page, let's go to firefly.adobe.com, or you can type into Google Adobe Firefly and it should be one of the first links that is presented to you. And if you click on the right link, you should be presented with a screen that looks like this. There are multiple products that Adobe Firefly covers, such as text-to-image, generative fill, text effects, and generative recolor, as well as 3D to image and extend image, which are currently integrated in some of their products, so they're not available online. In this video, we're going to cover the first product, which is text-to-image, and there will be subsequent videos to cover generative fill, text effects, and generative recolor. So to get to this page, please go to firefly.adobe.com and then log in with your Adobe account. If you don't have an Adobe account, you need to create one to use Adobe Firefly, since it is integrated in their Creative Suite products. However, you don't need a subscription to use it currently. So once you're logged in, just click on Generate with text to image, and I already have an account that's logged in, so we can go to the next section. And if you click on text to image, you'll be presented with a feed that looks like this, which looks very similar to Midjourney and shows all the other prompts that other people have created. So let's go over some of the prompts to learn a little bit more about the prompting method that works best with Adobe Firefly. So in a lot of these prompts, similar to Midjourney, the more words, the better in specific styles such as wide angle, Baroque, Impressionist, and other kinds of art styles, and different kinds of adjectives that sort of describe how the image should be set, as well as nouns and maybe actions of things that the subjects are doing. So for example, let's break this one apart, which is high contrast mountains, black and white, wide angle. So there are multiple different components of this prompt. There's high contrast, which is describing the photo settings. There's mountains, which are describing the subjects. There's black and white, which is describing photo settings, and wide angle, which is describing the composition. So in this single prompt, this creates an image that looks like this because it's using the photo settings and the prompting that contains the subject as well as what the subject is represented as. Let's go to a different prompt, and this one is mountains with fog and small white water, flowers, and graphic. So let's break this prompt apart, and we see that there's mountains, which is a subject, with fog, which is a thing that is associated with the mountain. There's small white flowers, which is another noun that describes another thing in the photo, and graphic, which describes the art style. So this creates a more cartoony kind of feel and has the mountains as well as white flowers, but it looks like it was drawn by a person. So this one is another unique one, which is two different nouns, which is Eiffel Tower and river, as well as a setting, which is in desert. And this creates an image that kind of looks like this. So now that we kind of see what's happening, let's go ahead and try a few prompts on our own. And I want to go through an example of how adding detail sort of shapes the photo and creates something completely unique. So let's start with just a noun. Let's start with a river. And let's not make it a boring river. Let's make it the biggest river in the world. And this will generate a very pretty prompt, a very pretty image. However, it won't be very exciting and it won't have that much oomph to it. And oomph is described as something that makes it unique and cool. So Adobe Firefly did a great job. This does look like the biggest river in the world. However, there's not that much going on. It's just a picture of a river. It's nice to look at for a few seconds, and it's very forgettable. One thing to note before going on, I want to talk about the settings bar on the right-hand side. And there are different things that make this a little bit better than Midjourney because there are settings such as aspect ratio, which you can pick landscape, portrait, square, and widescreen. Let's go with widescreen to sort of see what it looks like. You can change the content type on the fly without having to edit your prompt. And then you can change the styles, the color and tone, the lighting, and the composition. So let's go ahead and change some things real quick. Maybe we can change something like a wide angle and then change the lighting to dramatic lighting. And then we can regenerate using these settings and we can get a very different image. This is all something that Adobe has built in to sort of make text to image a lot more feature rich. So now that we've tried just a prompt where we have the largest river in the world, this is actually a noun plus an adjective because biggest is a adjective. Let's add a little bit more dynamic elements to the image. So now that we have a noun, let's add an action that's happening in the background. Let's say with lightning, sparking in the clouds. And now we're adding more dynamicism to the prompt. We have the largest river in the world. And then we also have something that's happening in the background, which adds more layers to the image. So let's go ahead and generate this and let's see what we can get. And since it's a widescreen, it takes more time to generate. So now this is even a more cool image because there's something happening in the background. However, let's try to add a little bit more of a feel to it because now it is still really cool, However, it doesn't have anything to connect us to the image. So maybe we should create something and have somebody in the river. So let's go ahead and add something like this. The largest river in the world with lightning sparking into clouds, and a boat drifting along that, riding close to a large waterfall. So now we're sort of adding more story to the prompt, and you can see how we built this up from a simple noun with adjective to a complete scene. And this is the power of building up your prompts and starting from small pieces to create a more holistic scene that can be generated. And now we have a really cool photo that maybe we can use for a printout. Maybe we can use it for a canvas. We can download it, we can heart it, and we can also submit it to the Firefly gallery. We can play around with more settings such as synthwave, which I personally really like. It kind of makes things look like Blade Runner or more like Daft Punk. This is all different features that we can use to really add some depth to our image. If we don't like that, we can remove it and we can just reuse the same prompt. However, I really like this image, so I'm going to download it. And this is sort of the power of Adobe Firefly. It's a really cool tool. And this covers the text to image section of Adobe Firefly in this course. Now let's take an under the hood look and understand how GANs power generative images. So this is a high level look of the GANs architecture and understanding how GANs can create images from text. So what GANs stand for Generative Adversarial Network, which in this case, generative means the ability to create new information. Adversarial means two models that work opposite of each other. And network, in this case, just means neural network. So the model architecture at a high level, which this image is actually taken from a paper detailing the GANs architecture, there are two important networks that are interconnected to generate a result: the G network and the D network. So the G stands for generator network, which basically takes raw noise data and creates images and pixels. The D network stands for discriminator and basically looks at the generated samples as well as real images and tries to decide whether it's real or fake. So over time, the model is trained using this feedback loop, and it's trained to create more images that look lifelike that can fool a discriminator network. So the adversarial part of this is the two models working against each other and fed back into each other to try to have an end goal of creating more lifelike images. In a way, the generator network is basically trying to trick the discriminator network to trick it to think that a generated image is real. And every time the network outputs an image and answer, one of the models will improve. So for example, if the discriminator network chooses the fake image as real, the discriminator will adjust its model weights, and every time the generator creates an image that's detected as fake, then the generator will have its weights adjusted as well. So you can see here, the random noise is fed into the generator, which creates generated data that's also fed with real data. And the discriminator network basically outputs real or fake, and that output is fed back into the generator network as well as the discriminator network. And this is where that feedback training happens. And this happens over 100,000 different iterations. And you can imagine as each iteration happens and the generator and discriminator network gets more information and feedback, they'll get better at creating realistic photos. So this is something that we should cover before moving on, the anatomy of a neural network. And this is an underlying technology that both the discriminator and generator networks use. So they're both neural networks, and neural networks are a set of nodes that are interconnected with different weights. These weights are adjusted based on each training iteration, and relationships that work between the nodes will have their weights increase, while the relationships that don't work will have their weights decrease. And something important to understand here is that neural networks are inherently probabilistic. So at the heart of each relationship between nodes, there is a probabilistic chance that the next node is the correct choice. So for example, if a node has 4 relationships, each with a weight of 0.25, that is basically saying there's a 25% chance that each of the connected nodes will happen after the current node. And it's important to think about it as if data is going from left to right, from input to output, and going through a series of transformations in order to be fed into this series of interconnected nodes to get a probabilistic output. So this is an example of a neural network that might be used for detecting whether a photo is a zebra. And this left part is the feature mapping, which is taking the different parts of a zebra and formatting in a way that the neural network can understand. And then the neural network is an interconnected set of weights that looks at different features on the zebra and tries to create a probabilistic output whether that image is a zebra. So, for example, some features might be the zebra's color, the animal's size, the animal's stripes, whether it has it or not, and each of those features are fed into the neural network. And then those features are mixed to smaller layers and then mixed again until there are only 3 different outputs, which in this case, the neural network might be able to identify a zebra from a horse from a dog. And the final output, there is a specific weight that determines whether the chances of this input image being one of those outputs. So in this case, based on the input and the feature mapping fed into the classification neural network, this image has a 20% chance of being a horse, a 70% chance of being a zebra, and a 10% chance of being a dog. In this case, the highest probability will most likely win. So because there's a 70% chance that this image is a zebra, then we're going to classify it as a zebra. So now understanding what GANs are at a high level and how the GANs architecture works, as well as the neural network, GANs have come a very long way. Since being discovered in 2014, GANs have already made a massive amount of progress and have become more realistic and high quality in almost every way. So this is sort of showing the progress of GANs from 2014 to 2017. From 2014, it was able to generate a face. And then between 2016 and 2017, the quality and the definition has improved vastly. So it's already 2023 when this video is recorded, and we already see GANs creating almost realistic artwork that can fool many people. So it's only going to improve from here on out, and it's very exciting to see where GANs will go in the future. This covers the under the hood look at GANs, and let's move on to the next section. Now we're going to cover the second Adobe Firefly section, which is generative fill. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you go to firefly.adobe.com or type into Google Adobe Firefly, and it should be one of the first links that you see on the page. If you click on it, you should be presented with a page that kind of looks like this. And if you are already logged in, which you should be if you've been following along with this lecture, you should be able to click Create with Firefly under Generative Fill, and you should be presented with a page that looks like this. This looks like samples of images that people have done, as well as the original image and the final image that they generated. It kind of shows examples of things you can do, like maybe completely changing the environment of something, adding items to a person like a hat or maybe like a teapot. You can also change somebody's outfit and change somebody's background entirely. You can also take a picture of a toy and then completely change whether it's on space or in the jungle. So to start using this, you need to have an image, and you can find images on unsplash.com, which is a free website that photographers upload their images to. And you can find some great pictures that you can use to edit and make interesting artwork out of. So let's go ahead and upload one. I have a picture of a lake, and let's just say this is me on vacation. So you can see here, there are a couple tools that we can use: the insert, the remove, and the pan. And then on the bottom, we have add, subtract, brush, background, and invert. So let's go ahead and start working with this image. The major thing that I like to do when I have a new image that I will use generative fill for is to think about what my goal image is. And this is sort of giving you a North Star with how to use generative fill. Generative fill is a very powerful tool because it uses real life photography is not completely generated by AI. It's only partially generated by AI. So let's say this is my vacation photo, and what I want to do is remove everybody from the lake except me. And let's say this is the person in the front. I want to remove people from the beach, and I want to pretend like I'm the only one here. And then I want to remove some of the sky and change it to something more cloudy or more gloomy. That way it looks like a really cool shot. And let's go ahead and get started doing that. So now we can think about the tools that we're using and what kind of tools would make sense for the job. So removing, first things first, we probably want to click remove, and then we want to click subtract. So removing is subtracting people from the scene. And let's go ahead and select some people from the scene. So let's go ahead and click the brush. So we're adding brush strokes. So we actually click add. And then if we want to subtract brush strokes, we can click subtract. So let's go ahead and add brush strokes. And then we want to remove that brush stroke because we brushed too much. And then we want to add more brush strokes here to remove these people. And let's focus on one area at a time, because the AI will focus on the water and it will generate a better response to the water. If you grab the beach at the same time, it might generate a wonky response because there's too many conflicting environments. So let's focus on the water first and remove all the boats. So once we're done with our selection, we just click remove, and it will generate a few options for us to use and overlay it. It'll generate 4 at a time, and if we want more, we can always click more. So let's give it a few seconds for the AI to work. And this looks really good. But the best thing is there's multiple different options for us to use. So the first one is my favorite. These are also really good. I like this one a lot too. This one looks a little bad. So 1 and 3, let's go with 1. Let's keep it. So now that we pick the one to keep, we can move on to the next section. And let's go ahead and add some brush strokes for remove. And the major difference between insert and remove is remove doesn't have any prompts. It only removes a selection or replaces it with pixels that kind of look like they belong there. Insert takes a selection and replaces it with something that can be generated with prompts. So now we have our section, let's click remove, and it'll generate a few options for us to use in that beach environment. So this looks pretty good. This looks pretty good too. A lot of these look pretty good, but none of them are quite perfect. So let's click more to generate more options, and it'll always generate 4 at a time. So these are starting to look really good. I kind of like this one. I like the environment, the rocks on the back. So let's keep it. Now that we had removed everybody, we want to remove this clouds and we want to change it. And I'm going to show you something really important about Adobe Firefly right now, that selection is extremely important and it completely changes the way that things might be presented. If we remove a subject or insert a new subject, we want to completely select the old one to let the AI override it accurate. So I'm going to replace the sky, but I'm only going to select parts of it. And I'm going to show you how the outcome will not look very good. So let's go ahead and select it and let's create a prompt. I want clouds with birds. And I'm going to generate it and let it work. And I'm going to show how it might look kind of wonky. This looks really bad. And this is mostly because I didn't select the entire thing, because it will look at the pixels to the left and around it. And if there's nothing that detects an edge, it might just try to use those pixels with the current pixels, and it might generate something that is completely out of focus and doesn't look really good. So I don't want to keep this. Let's cancel it. And I'm going to show you how, if we select the entire sky, it'll completely change the way that we're generating these images. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm selecting a little bit of mountains fine because we won't notice if that part of the mountain's missing and the AI might just replace it. So let's completely change this and let's try to do a dramatic sky with a little lightning. So go ahead and select it. And now it's generating. Wow, that is not good. So let's try a different prompt. So let's just do dramatic sky, cloudy sky with, cloudy, partially sky. So this is sort of showing how a lot of the generative fill is trial and error. A lot of it is back and forth, and it takes a little bit of effort to get what you really want. You never really know what the AI is going to generate. So this is starting to look more like what I want. Let's pick different options. This one looks a little fake. This one looks better. This one looks better. This one also looks a little good. Maybe we should just remove like the cloudy part, and then we can just say clouds. Now let's try to add that. And this is showing the back and forth process of using generative fill. Eventually, you might get the picture that you want, and it just takes a little finagling with the capture size as well as the prompts to get the image that you really are looking for. This looks really cool. It looks very angelic, and it looks like we're really high up and close to the clouds. This one looks a little fake, so let's pass on it, and maybe let's generate 4 more just to see what we can get. So it's a very fun trial and error process. And once we have the image that we want, we can just click download. I like this one. Let's keep it. Let's just click download, and we can save the image and export it to use in whatever kind of content or marketing material that we want to use it for. This covers the generative fill section of Adobe Firefly for the generative AI course. Now let's continue with our Adobe Firefly section and cover text effects with Adobe Firefly. So if you haven't already done so, please go to firefly.adobe.com, and you should be presented with a page like this. If you can't find it, just go to Google and type in Adobe Firefly, and it should be one of the first links. You need an Adobe account to use this, but currently, since it's in open beta, it's completely free. However, this might change in the future and might become part of the Creative Suite. So make sure you log into your Adobe account before accessing, and then just scroll down and click Text Effects, Create with Firefly. You should be presented with a page that looks like a photo feed of examples of other people's text, and with examples of the prompts they use to generate that text. So for example, let's break apart some of these prompts. This one is the letter G in the effect of peacock feathers, and this one is the letter S in the effect of twisted driftwood. And this is the effect of N with black and gold dripping paint. So if we wanted to generate a new text, on the bottom there's a generation prompt, and there's 2 parts of the generation prompt. There's enter text on the left side, and describe the effects you want to create on the right side. This is pretty self-explanatory, so this is going to be a really short section, but let's go ahead and generate some text. We can generate single letters first. So let's generate the letter A, and let's do it in the effect of fire and water. So this is more of a shorter prompt. We are providing the letter as well as a description, so this can be a little shorter than the other Midjourney and Firefly prompts because we are providing the noun on the left side, and then all we're doing is describing the setting on the right side. Let's go click generate and see what we can make. And there's options on the right side such as sample prompts, shapes, fonts, background color, and text color, and then it provides 4 different options. So we can find the one that we want the most and go ahead and use that. And then once we find the one that we want, we can end up downloading it or saving it, or we can click generate and generate a new batch of letters. So let's go ahead and try to add a longer word, like maybe like apple, and you can see that it generates the entire word and automatically refreshes it. We can change the prompt. Let's say we want apple with trees and forests. Now we'll generate a new word with the effect that we specified, and we can play around with the fonts as well as the match shapes to sort of get the effect that we're looking for our marketing material. Maybe we're using this for a banner or something else that we can use for digital advertising. These are all great examples of what we can do with this, and there's going to be more in the worksheet attached to this lecture. So this covers the text to image for text effects on Adobe Firefly. Now let's go over generative recolor in Adobe Firefly. And if you haven't done so already, go to firefly.adobe.com and log into your Adobe account, and you should be presented with a page that looks like this. Currently, as of the video, generative recolor and other features in Adobe Firefly are free to use since they're in beta. However, this might change in the future since it might get integrated into the Creative Suite. So let's go ahead and scroll down and click on generative recolor and click generate. So what generative recolor does is it recolors vector images. And vector are files that are saved as an SVG that can scale infinitely without losing any sort of crispness. So when we click on it, we get presented with a photo feed that looks like this of examples of how generative recolor can change vector images. So this does not work on typical images, says typical images are typically saved as a JPEG or a PNG. However, this is good for vector images such as artwork, logos, and other things that might be more digitally created, therefore easier to use with this tool. And this is synonymous with Adobe Illustrator since Adobe Illustrator primarily makes vector images. So I found a few vectors online and let's go ahead and try editing them. So first I'm going to take a vector of a camera and let's say this was a vector image of a logo for a company website that we're using. So let's go ahead and start thinking of prompts that we can change this color scheme to. Currently it's red and blue. Let's say let's make it more American themed. And this is sort of showing some of the things that we can do with generative recolor. Let's say we wanted to change it for the 4th of July holiday. Then doing a vector recolor of the logo with the AI tool is something that we could do. And on the right-hand side, we have a few sample prompts like sand and sushi, salty stone beach, and also harmonies, which are different color palettes that we can use and what it complements it with. And then lastly, we have some default colors that sort of prioritize that single color as the primary color inside of that color scheme. So we can go ahead and select the colors that we want, and we can also choose the different harmonies or play around with the sample prompts. So maybe this isn't exactly what we want. Maybe we want to change it to something else. Let's say we are creating something for the holidays. Then we can say a prompt like December close to the holidays. And this will change the logo to be something that is more suited for maybe the festival times. So you can see here that we recolored it a different way. And then let's say we did another one, maybe close to the start of spring. And this is a good way of quickly recoloring logos to be very timely for certain holidays and events. So let's go ahead and try one more. I'm going to upload one of a beach, and this is another SVG that I found online. I found a lot from svgrepo.com, so feel free to check that out to find SVG's tool. So now we're reusing the same prompt as before. Maybe let's do summer because this is a very beachy kind of image. So start of summer close to vacation. And this will recolor it to be close to the event. We can also completely change it to make it extremely specific of what we want out of this. So let's describe it as red and black. That's the color scheme that we want to use. And now it'll recolor the image to be red and black or darker. So we can see here that it generates 4 options, and we can choose any of the options to download as well as the color palette that's selected for it. And all of these look pretty good. It's red to black. However, it didn't detect black as one of the primary colors in this layout, so that's fine with me. A lot of these look pretty good, and we can download them. That covers generative recolor. I'll attach a worksheet in the lecture description. Now we're going to go over Playground AI and using it to rapidly prototype different image generation prompts for generating your text-to-image AI art. So I'm on playgroundai.com, and if you aren't on this page already, make sure you go to that URL or go to Google and type in Playground AI, and it should be one of the first links. When you're on the page, you should be presented with a UI that looks like this or a landing page that covers Playground AI. And it looks something like this if you are logged in. So to get started, making an account is completely free as of now. However, this might change in the future. And they have a free version that lets you create 1,000 images per day and use the images commercially. So let's go ahead and create an account, and you can log in with a Google account. So I'm going to log in with mine. And once you're logged in, you're presented with a blank canvas where you can use to generate your art. So when you're on this blank canvas, you can adjust a box that sort of is the size of your AI generated artwork. And you also have settings on the right side that lets you adjust the height and the width up to a maximum size of 1024. Change the prompt guidance, which changes how accurate the AI follows your prompt, the quality and details, as well as some seed images and the number of images that generate at a time. And on the left side, on the canvas, you can upload an image for inspiration. So an image uploaded is the base for the newly generated images, and the AI will try to use that base to create new artwork. It also allows you to pick filters as well as trade in words to exclude from the image, as well as words that sort of guide the image on how to be created. So once you have a generation frame selected, you can include a prompt. So let's say for this example, we're trying to generate a artwork about a mountain with clouds in the background. So let's go ahead and create that. And this UI is very powerful because it lets you create a lot of iterations really quickly without having to go back and forth, and then letting you see your previous artwork in order to make modifications and make updates quickly so you can sort of figure out what a good prompt is for your artwork. So sometimes it takes a while to generate. Let's give it some more time. And we can actually make this faster by decreasing the number of images generated and then decreasing the quality and details, as well as prompt guidance. These settings sort of change how quickly images are created. So now that we created two, let's go ahead and iterate. So I kind of like the left one. However, I don't like the cloudiness. So I actually want it to be on a sunny day. And a few clouds on top of the mountain. So in Playground AI, the UI is curated in a way that makes it easy to quickly create and paint new images on the fly. So this way you can see the previous artwork and then make modifications to the prompt and then iterate until you have the perfect image that you're looking for. So let's say we want the mountain to be taller. So let's go ahead and add tallest mountain in the world and then create a new background. And then maybe we want to change the filter to be a little bit more intense or more real. So let's go ahead and change it after this image generated. And now we can see that we're starting to get closer to maybe the image that we're looking for. We can continue generating and trying different effects until we get the optimal output that we want. So now we're generating another one with macro realism. Maybe next time we can add a different lettuce type or a different kind of environment. So this one looks a lot more closer to like real art. This one looks a little bit computer generated or maybe not perfectly shot. So let's go ahead and add DSLR and portrait photography. So this is a fun way of experimenting and then figuring out the ideal prompt with ideal settings that you can use to put into other text-to-image generators, or even just download the image when you are done. So you can see here, when you hover over an image, you can crop it, you can image to image, or remove background, or even delete it. You can also right-click and upscale and download for free. So if you click download, you'll be able to download it and open it onto your computer. You can also upscale it which basically increases the size of the image. And all of these images are allowed to be used commercially. So you can actually use it for different sort of use cases like websites or stock imagery. So this is when it's upscaled. It increases the resolution by 4x, and then you can download it after that and use it for whatever sort of use case you're looking for. So this is playing around with Playground AI and using it to experiment quickly on different text-to-image prompts. So far, we covered a ton of AI tools in this class, and now let's go over how to generalize our AI image generation knowledge and use it for every tool in the market, as well as every tool that might come out in the market in the future. So let's go over a subset of the tools that we covered in this class and also some in the marketplace. There's DALL-E 2 and 3, which are different versions of the same model. DALL-E 3 is more advanced. There's Midjourney for creating AI art. There's Imagine AI, which is trained on Instagram images. And there's Adobe Firefly, which is trained on Adobe Stock. There are a ton of more image generation tools. This is just a subset. There's things like Stable Diffusion and Playground AI, which might be using Stable Diffusion or other models, and so on and so forth. So what makes them all the same? All of them use a prompt input. The prompting with an English or your language is the default mode of interacting with these models. Most tools rely on a model based on the GAN architecture, and GAN here stands for Generative Adversarial Network, as a neural network for generating and determining if an image looks real or not. So as we covered in a previous lecture, there are two neural networks that work together. There's a generator, which creates images, and a discriminator, which trained on training data to discern whether an image is real or fake. So as the generative network creates images, it gets fed into the discriminator, and the discriminator's job is to determine whether an image is real or fake. It gets fed real and fake images, and as the answer gets output from the discriminator, it gets fed back into the generator to adjust its model weights to try to generate more realistic images. So if the discriminator's images are really good, then the generator is going to keep on getting better to generate more realistic images because it needs to fool the discriminator to a certain degree of confidence. So that means that the better the images are, the better the generator, and the more realistic images that will create. So what makes it different? The differences in the models are the underlying training data and the model weights. DALL-E 3 is trained on publicly available data, such as 400 million labeled images. Adobe Firefly is based on proprietary images from Adobe Stock. Meta Imagine's trained on Instagram and Facebook images. And Midjourney is also trained on publicly available data. Sample prompts that can be used for every tool. No matter which tool you're using, a lot of these prompts can be transposed into those different tools, and you can use them to create the same kind of images you would be using in your AI image generation tool of choice. So you can choose art style, for example, like DSLR painting, oil painting, vintage, Picasso, Manet, and Van Gogh. You can also choose the lighting with keywords like dramatic, portrait, spotlight, etc. You can choose the subjects and backgrounds such as robot, whale, landscape, etc. And you can choose different contrasts such as high, medium, low contrast. They're just a sample of some of the prompts that can be used. There's a ton more. This is just a sampling to get your ideas going. A lot of the prompting can transpose into different AI image generation tools, and the output would be different because of the different models. You can also provide more details and directions to the AI in every image generation tool. That kind of concept is universal across the board. So some of my favorite tools are Meta Imagine because it's completely free. All you need is a Meta account. The most realistic image generation tool, but requires a subscription, is Adobe Firefly. The most integrated model across the most tools right now at the time of recording is ChatGPT, such as ChatGPT and Bing Chat is DALL-E 3. It's integrated into ChatGPT 4, and it's also integrated into Bing Chat. So that covers this section. Let's move on to the next one. Now in this section, we're going to go over and watch a case study of how Coca-Cola used Midjourney to create an ad entirely with AI. I'm going to play this reel and we're going to talk about it after. Now that we watched this, can you tell how they did that? It's actually quite brilliant. A movie is a sequence of frames, and if you break apart a movie or a video into individual frames, you can actually directly manipulate those frames with AI. So by recording a video and then breaking up into individual frames and then feeding each individual frame into the machine learning AI model, the Coca-Cola marketing team was able to create this ad by editing every individual frame and then putting it back together into a coherent video. So this is a showcase of what AI is capable of in generating creative content.